the Dream event. Each year, we take time to remember Martin Luther King Jr. and his beloved community. And each year, we are thrilled to feature the many people and organizations who have taken action to be of service, not only in January and February, but all year round. We at We the World welcome you to take action and be of service at we.net/MLK from January 15th to February 28th. Please join us in being a part of this annual celebration and consider being of service in your communities and with us. Of course, donations are very appreciated at we.net/donate. My name is Jana Larsen, and I am the HR Deputy Director of We the World. Today, we are welcoming Janice Lucas and Donna Pilson. Janice Lucas is the Executive Director of LED Coalition in Bay County. LED, or LEAD, started as a response to youth violence in the community and has grown into a community development organization to better position to meet the needs identified during the first few years of its existence. In addition, Janice was a former board chair for Rebuild Bay County and instrumental in its creation. Lastly, but certainly not insignificant, Janice is now an elected city commissioner in Panama City. In that role, among many other things, she brings the voices of the nonprofits doing service for the local government and helps drive the will of government to community-focused efforts. She is well able to speak on a multitude of topics and would be great for a panel on environmental justice, climate-related disaster impacts, and community resilience, which is certainly very timely for today. Janice, thank you for being here.
Well, thank you, Jana, for having me today, and Donna from Panama City, Florida. It has been our lived experience since the Cat 5 storm, Hurricane Michael, to relegate us to a position of leadership in rebuilding our city and our county, as we were already working in the underserved neighborhoods. As you mentioned, with the LEAD coalition that got underway in 2014 when we had a series of 7 homicides over 9 weeks. That was unprecedented and shocking to this little small community on the Gulf of Mexico. I mean, we're not a major metropolitan area like Miami or Chicago, and certainly that amount of homicides, particularly in underserved neighborhoods, was disturbing to the folk who lived in those neighborhoods as well as to all of us throughout the city and county. LEAD is celebrating its 10-year existence. I mean, we started by just having dialogue and discussion. We knew that what was going on was not representative of the people in those neighborhoods, not representative of the people in our city and county. And as we were working through that, talking with folks, engaging the people who were in the neighborhoods where these homicides were happening, with being a part of the solution. And then we get hit by a Cat 5 storm in 2018. And so at that level, the playing field literally and figuratively for everyone. In those immediate days after the hurricane, all of us had the same immediate needs: food, water, repair, and every day people were in a survival mode. We were without electricity for weeks, and water for at least a month or so. So that was a trying time for all of us, and really changed, I think, the way we look at our community and how we need to work together. The government, local government, county government, as I think is perhaps the case in other communities as well. They work in a certain fashion with many regulations and are open to public scrutiny. And so they have a way of working that doesn't necessarily, let me just say, jibe with
Mm-hmm.
sync with the way those of us in the service sector and the nonprofit sector of our communities work together. Doesn't mean that the heart is not there, doesn't mean that the care is not there. It's just a different set of responsibilities. Post Hurricane Michael, though, we were able to work together alongside government because we all had the very same travesty facing us every day. And so that has led to a different relationship in Panama City Bay County between government and not only the nonprofits, but the faith-based and the service sector. In fact, it was the United Way of Northwest Florida that led the effort for us to form Rebuild Bay County, the long-term disaster recovery organization. And as a part of that rebuild, if you will, or building that organization, Rebuild Bay County, um, government and city have been practicing how to work together. I'm sorry, government, city government, county government, nonprofit sector has been practicing how to work together. And I think we just concluded today our most successful warming center that we opened to meet the needs of those who are out in the cold, literally, with temperatures dropping below freezing. This was our third time offering a warming center since December 2022, and it has gone very well, and I think is indicative of the way government is working together more effectively since Hurricane Michael, and I think is a fitting example as we talk about service during this time of honoring and remembering the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Wow. Well, that's a lot. And first of all, let me congratulate you on your position and city official. And I also must apologize for calling it LED coalition instead of lead coalition, one of those parts of the English language that makes it hard for even us English speakers. And the reason I did is because one of the people that are going to be featured in our MLK celebration is in Cleveland, and she is working against lead
Okay.
in pipes and everywhere, and but again, the lead in the pipes has been a contributing factor towards developmental issues and violence and all too. So wow, that's a lot. Thank you so much, and we'll be talking with you again later. Now let's bring in Donna Pilson. She is the executive director for Rebuild Bay County Incorporated, Bay County's long-term disaster recovery organization. She is a 25-year veteran of the United States Air Force, where she retired in 2018 at the rank of colonel, and a career program manager and engineer experienced in managing technical acquisition programs. She moved to Panama City in 2010 and has volunteered with the Girl Scouts of the Florida Panhandle, the Panama City Marine Institute, JUDOS, the FSU-PC STEM Institute, and the Bay Education Foundation. She currently sits on the Alignment Bay County Governing Board, Habitat for Humanity of Bay County Board of Directors, United Way of Northwest Florida Strategic Planning Committee, and is the president of the Panama City Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. She holds a Bachelor of Science in Aerospace Engineering from Tuskegee University, a Master's in Aeronautical Sciences from Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, and a Master's in Military Sciences from the Marine Corps University. She is married to Coy Pilson, and they have two children, Corey and Kiana. Did I pronounce Kiana's name right?
Yes.
So, I imagine your most difficult job is being a mom, but that's a lot. What do you do in your spare time if you have any?
I put together puzzles.
Okay.
I do. As an engineer, I love fixing things, and
Oh,
puzzles give me a chance to fix things and unwind.
yes, I like to color myself. So, wow. So, tell me more about what you do.
I am. So at the present time, I'm the executive director of Rebuild Bay County, and Janice talked about the after Hurricane Michael, the formation of the county's long-term disaster recovery organization, of which she had a very critical role in. And when they when our group of leaders within the county reached out to kind of see who was interested in helping with the leadership of the organization, was able to put in an application, and they hired me. So I'm very pleased to be the first executive director of the county's long-term disaster recovery organization. And I will say that, our mission, when we started, as Janice mentioned, was to provide assistance to those residents that were impacted by that Category 5 hurricane that devastated our area. We knew it would be a long-term recovery for a long term. We just didn't know how long that would be. So as an organization, looking to how to best serve our community, we had many organizations that came together to try to figure out what that looked like. However, as we see in most of in most disaster situations, there comes a time when everyone that comes together for in the immediate aftermath, there comes a time when they go back to their homes. And
Yeah.
so, and a community needs an organization that will be there for that long-term recovery. And Rebuild Bay County became that organization. So we got in and started working and learned how to manage money, manpower, and resources, manpower, and money, manpower, and materials in order to address the long-term needs of our community. For Hurricane Michael specific recovery. However, since then, our area has gone through another hurricane. We've gone through COVID. We've had several days of wildfires. We've had extreme temperatures, both hot and cold. And so what that showed us is we need a longer presence in an organization to be able to meet those varying needs, because now we weren't looking at just hurricane recovery. We're looking at recovery from different types of needs. And so as an organization, we look to grow our capabilities such that we could respond to the varying kinds of needs that we had in a community that had already been devastated and underserved even prior to Hurricane Michael. One of the things we found as we were serving our community is that the resources generally are there. But what we lack is being able to access the appropriate resources for the need at hand. And so that's what we took on that mission, and it allowed us to kind of expand what we were currently doing to address it from that perspective. We also found that after a disaster, and I think we see this in most communities, when a disaster strikes, the community, the government, the government agencies, the individual households, and service organizations come together in a mighty way and just really band together to be able to meet needs and to help our community. We have supplies, we have resources coming from all directions, and but then at some point, everybody goes back into their corner.
Mhm.
And what we've strived to do is figure out how do we keep that going so that we are working together in between disasters, so that when a disaster hits, we know we're going to come together, but can we come together after some planning? and be more targeted and more intentional in how we apply the resources that we have. And that's one of the things that we really are, as a director of a service organization, we're reaching out to our governments to kind of help with that. A lot of times, many of your large funding opportunities come through our local governments. And so it's imperative that we figure out how do we collaborate such that, and in our planning, so that when we're in execution time, we're ready to go. And so that's the one, I'm very, very thankful that we have someone like Janice Lucas in a position of government and she understands what we need and what we go through as service organizations, so she can bring that political will to bear. And so we are trying to show our community how we work together, government and service organizations, in our planning to be able to bring resources to bear in a way that is most beneficial to our community, particularly those communities that have historically been underserved.
Yes, yes. Well, it's a big job.
Mhm.
And as you say, it's certainly very helpful to have someone in power there who is there and kind of helping you fight the battle. So I had some questions, but when did this, for both of you, and you can both just jump in and answer as you wish. So when did this whole agency come together really, like it just really formed and gelled and was ready to take off? When would you say that was?
So the timeline of the founding and establishment of the long-term disaster recovery organization started in November 2018. Hurricane Michael hit October 10th, and within 45 days, the United Way had convened the community and with a clarion call. And from there, we had a series of meetings. And some may say, well, we worked too long on the bylaws, but we knew that the foundation of an organization going forward would be its governance structure. And by April, we had a name, an organization, and I don't recall if our 501c3 status had come back, but it had been submitted. And so, Donna, help me out. Was it August 2019 that that after a second round of interviewing for an executive director, we hired Donna Pilson. So within a year, we had convened the organization, facilitated its establishment, and started and recruited our first staff member, whose job then was to find the money to pay herself, to find an office to work in, and so forth. And she undertook the task. I think it was something that she had been looking for, that she could sink her skill set, mind, and heart in. And I'd like her to tell the story about where she was at one of the shelters in the aftermath of Hurricane Michael, which I think really, from what I gather from what she's told me, shaped her commitment to this cause.
Yes, let's hear that. Sounds like it was passion centered.
Sure. So I actually retired after 25 years from the military in July of 2018. And at that time, my last assignment, my husband and I were geographically separated. And so when I retired in that summer, I returned to Panama City to rejoin my husband. And I was thinking about what do I do next? And during that time, Hurricane Michael hit. At the time, my husband was the principal of one of the local high schools. And, we've gone through disasters before. So we evacuated and left the school in good hands. And on the way out of town, my husband got a call that his school was going to be opened as a shelter, and we were too far gone And also the policy at the time for the schools was just to turn over the keys
Mm.
to the appropriate, if their school was to be used as a shelter, to turn over the keys. We returned the day after the storm because we lost contact with the person that my husband left in charge of the school. And so we returned the day after and could not get into our neighborhood. And so we went directly to the shelter at the high school. And at that time, there were 450 individuals, about 50 animals, enough power to enough generator power for the lights in the cafeteria and one burner in the kitchen and no water. And the shelter lead had gone out for supplies and never returned. And we had no communications other than Facebook Messenger. And it was a heart-wrenching situation. And so we jumped out and just set about trying to figure out what was going on. Neither one of us had ever worked a shelter before. My husband, I think every shelter guest there probably had a school t-shirt because he just went from closet to closet looking for clothes, looking for whatever he could provide. And it was a crazy situation, and I saw that. But we had in our county, we had a school that was prepped to be a shelter prior. This was the planned shelter that was several miles north of town, minimum, if any, damage, and they were fully staffed, fully supplied, backup power, backup communications, and had running water and electricity. And very few people, because the folks that were impacted the most could not get there.
Yeah.
And so they went to where they could get to, which was this school. And seeing how the resources were applied, I just said we have to do better. There has to be a better way. And that just did something to us. And I watched a shelter personnel, a young lady came up and she said, I'm pregnant and I've been holding it for several hours. Can I go to the bathroom? And he said no. And because the porta potties had not arrived.
Oh no.
And so just seeing that, it just really compelled me to do something, to get involved, and to come in with an attitude of how do we figure it out, because the conditions would not be ideal. And that's what I feel like I brought to Rebuild Bay County.
An air of confidence that we can do this. We're smart. We can figure this out. We can do this. And it's just like, the disaster movies. There's somebody there that goes, come on, we can do this. Let's get together. Let's pull together. And
so I'm an aerospace engineer. And so my favorite line is, it's not rocket science.
Even though you probably know all about
I know a little bit about rocket science, and this is not rocket science.
But sometimes, I mean,
it does take will.
Sometimes that common sense that we think that we have is really kind of a rare sense. And so it does take some thinking outside the box and kind of looking things in a different way and kind of like MacGyvering your way through it, and figuring out.
Absolutely. That's what I would call it, MacGyvering. And listen, I will tell you, it's one thing to have that attitude and to go and to attack things that way, but what's equally important is having the flexibility to do that, and what our board did at that time, and Janice was our board chair for part of that time. What they allowed me to do it. And so they did not tie my hands, and they said, okay, you're colonel, You
They
got a
sound
figure it
good.
out attitude. Go do.
Well, yay!
Appreciate
Thanks
that.
for
I
that
appreciate that.
foresight. And as you said, Janice, taking the time to do the infrastructure is really important. It sounds like it all came together rather quickly, because you had to. So
Yeah, I mean, there was Hurricane Michael, and then within 18 months, Hurricane Sandy, not as disastrous, but when you're already crippled,
yeah, we
that
already
was
down.
another storm. And then the wildfires, some of the worst wildfires in the state of Florida. I get a call one Friday from Donna. It's like, yeah, I'm opening a shelter up here on 231. I was like, okay, what do we do? And in the aftermath of that, the board had the conversations that said, okay, we're the long-term disaster recovery organization. However, we need to have some procedures in place so that, Donna isn't getting the call every time because, we're still trying to grow an organization and we're still trying to ramp up a staff and so forth. And so we were able to respond, but all of that has gone into this planning piece that Donna is so capable of and adamant about making sure we get in place. And we just saw the evidence of that with this shelter that opened last Monday and was extended because of the weather conditionings the weather conditions continuing to be less than ideal for anyone who's out in the streets and in the weather. And so we are applying what we're learning. And since
Learning on the job.
yes, yes,
So it sounds like they should make a movie about this experience because I mean, it's not a pleasant thing to watch, but interesting because of what happened. So you probably have already answered some of what my next question is, or what are some of your biggest challenges. So it's how to get people to stick around instead of just going back to their homes. But you want to, would either of you, both of you, like to elaborate on any other challenges?
I'd like to say one of the challenges that we were looking at was a place out of which to operate.
Hmm.
The past history of not having a community resource center and government not really understanding why we would need to do something like that or why they should assist.
What a
Well,
silly question, but still, yeah.
right. So Hurricane Michael, got rid of all of those apprehensions and questions and so forth, because again, not again, but then we were being looked at as a community that's had a major disaster, and this is what other communities had in place prior to or put in place very soon thereafter. And so now it made sense to government because it fit their model of how they work. And we then looked at a former African American school, A.D. Harris, which has for years struggled to be a community resource center, the A.D. Harris Learning Village. And it had been challenged with, we had been challenged with trying to use a business model on a school that was physically outdated. And so we had really had to come up with another way. Well, that engineering mind got us all, in strategic planning and in sessions, but there wasn't the political will at the city level to really see what we were trying to do, and negotiations just fell apart. And so one of the things that was on my agenda as I ran for office was to bring the political will to working with our nonprofit service sector to solve those kinds of problems. And so today, the A.D. Harris Learning Village and Resilience Center is managed by Rebuild Bay County. And that management agreement came about in October. Because it was in place, the decision to have a warming center became a very quick decision because there was one call to make versus calling the city of Panama City, and that had to, go through management staff and then go to the community revitalization agency staff. And so operations are able to go more smoothly. And so that's one of the challenges that we've been able to overcome. But there are other challenges that are fresh on Donna's mind, and she's already working, in her mind, how we're going to address them.
Solving it. So, do you want to add to that, Donna? What other challenges do you want to discuss?
Sure. I think one of the major challenges is just how we think about it. And we tend to do a lot of talking, and we have choices. We can talk about it, or we can do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's easy to say this organization should have done this, or government should do this, because this is what I see in other places. Our government should do this, or our government saying our nonprofits should do this. We can talk about it, or we can do something about it. Because when we're talking about it, we're not doing something about it. And so we have to put the heart is there, the resources are there. We have to put action to it. And so I want to just challenge the thinking of our, anyone that would have an interest in this, to let's do something, and let's start. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be 100%, but let's start. So that's one. Also, I think that there's a misconception between government and nonprofit organizations. I think on there, and this is just my personal observation, and at least here in this area, that from the government side, they believe that nonprofit organizations should do the work that is involved with taking care of the community, taking care of the people. And they should do it, and out of the goodness of their hearts.
Mm-hmm.
On the nonprofit side, or the community service organization side, we believe that government should pay for all of that. And that they should provide the facilities, they should provide the funding, and it's probably somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
It's a collaboration between the two. And I think that if we can get past this, then I think we can come to some agreement on how we work together, where there's involvement with both. At the end of the day, as we do our warming centers, and this is what I've been telling our government leaders here, if our folks are out, if our people are out and they're cold, they're not going to call Rebuild Bay. They're not going to complain to Rebuild Bay. They're going to call their county or their city commissioner. So
which is where Janice comes in.
so own that. However, our government should know that they can come to our service organizations, and if they take the leadership of it, then the service organizations will work. A lot of your larger funding opportunities come through your government. And so there has to be some collaboration. So getting past that misconception. Also, not competing. We can, and that's between service organizations. We have some very well-meaning, very capable service organizations. And there's really enough need to where we don't have to compete against each other for funding. And I think if we could come together on funding opportunities, even as service organizations, and each of us take our niche, then we all win. And so that's just the ability to be able to think out of the box on how we can collaborate better, I think has been one of the concerns that I've had.
Not rocket science.
Not rocket science.
Janice, did you want to say something?
Yes, I'd like to add to that one of the attitudes I encountered at the city level was looking at nonprofits more as charities than as nonprofit businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And as a charity, a former city manager said, we don't want to pick winners and losers in terms of who we give funds to. And my counter to that was that a nonprofit is a business with a charitable mission, but we cannot fulfill our mission if we don't make a profit. And the difference between profit and nonprofit isn't that you somehow miraculously do all the service you do with no money. It's that the money that's raised and anything over what's needed goes back into the mission of the organization and not into shareholders' pockets. And
And
so,
salaries.
exactly. And
Yeah.
understanding that, then if there is a need that is a service oriented need, then government determines what is needed in an and put out a request for a proposal, a request for inquiry from that from that business, just as you would if you needed, concrete. You figure out how much you need and what the project is, and you put an RFQ out. And so, in that regard, we're working on these urban and social issues from a business standpoint, because that's where it is for the government. They can't afford, to pay for everything. Just small example, we've got some 50 parks in the city of Panama City. Now that's
Mm.
way too many parks. We cannot maintain them all, and so now we definitely need more organizations, individuals engaged with helping with the upkeep for what we have in the
Like
community.
they adopt a park or something like that, or an area of the
Yes,
city.
yes.
Yeah.
And so that's just a small example of how we can work together more effectively. And one of the things that that government has done is determine what's the way we can get something done the quickest, the easiest. And so it might be quick and easy to hire a big company to do landscaping, for instance. But we've got a parks, culture, and recreation director who's brought a different approach that says if I get folks who are small businesses in each of the wards to do the work, then we've got a couple of things to our advantage. One, there's pride in what's going on. It's not just a contract based on how much money we need to make and what our profit and all that needs to
Hmm.
be. And we've seen that come to fruition with a small business owner who was doing some land clearing. I talked with him about a piece of property in his neighborhood. I'm like, do you know who owns this? Because I don't want to call code enforcement, which we now call code compliance, if they'll just come and mow it and get it out of the yard. Well, after we couldn't, I mean, out of the street, after we couldn't reach the owner, that guy just went and did it. He said, I knocked it back, so abated the issue because it's his neighborhood and and we're working together.
That makes sense. And it's perfect use of community resources. Well, my last question, and I think you probably, um, well, I don't know. We'll see what you say to this one. Being of service is central to MLK's beloved community. Have you found, or do you have proven successful methods for attracting and retaining volunteers? Because as a volunteer direct person with We the World, that is one of the tough ones, and of course there are a lot of very obvious answers for why. But have you found anything with in your work that has worked?
Donna?
Okay, I'll
Yeah.
take this. Yes, and I'll just look at I'll use it as an example, the warming center that we just closed today after 6 nights. Um, I believe that if we give volunteers a meaningful assignment and a meaningful experience to where they walk away feeling like they made a difference, then that will compel them, motivate them, inspire them to come back again. We like to show our volunteers, here's what we're doing, here's the impacts that we make, and here's how we even benefit from that, even from your service. So usually when volunteers come in, I like to before we even start a project, I like to first thank them for being there and taking up their time and being willing. Clearly explain what we are doing, not just what they would be doing, but the overall picture of what we're doing. help them understand the clients, the folks that we will be impacting, and then how what they're doing is making a lasting impact. So we talk about, if we're getting folks in their homes, what that looks like, and that we are getting folks in their homes, we're pulling people out of the cold, and then the value of a volunteer hour and why we use that, right? So in the state of Florida, the value of a volunteer hour is $31.61. So in addition to how we've helped the client, we also help the organization, because that allows us to be able to use that value as match when we're applying for grant funding. And so just being able to articulate that to our volunteers when they come in, and then putting that out and publicizing that, folks will see that and go, wow, they're doing something. So we like to be visible, and we like to let them know that they are making a lasting impact.
And it can be a family event too, to help.
Absolutely.
And for well, my kids are older, but for my kids, having service learning opportunities is very helpful too, and it can be an ongoing process. Janice, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
Well, I yielded to Donna because she has done an extraordinary job recruiting and honoring local volunteers. But she is a fantastic organizer. We get calls from youth groups and faith groups who are spending their spring break or their summer vacation, and they're looking for service projects. And so she always has 1, 2, or 10 at the ready. And can put people to work, whether it's a family of 4 or a church group of 30, and sees the value in that, in doing that. So all of these pieces go together, and as we stop on the MLK holiday to reflect on his life and legacy, and that of the untold numbers of people who worked in the civil rights movement alongside him, those who worked before him that made the ground ready for him to do the work, to lead the work that was done. And so as we reflect on that, I just want to remind us that Martin Luther King Day is a day on and not a day off. I got a message from our Parks Recreation Director who was concerned that, who received a concern from Burke Construction, who's building our almost $20 million Martin Luther King Recreation Center here in Panama City. That's a rebuild after Hurricane Michael. The construction company was concerned about working on MLK Day. And I said, it's a day on and not a day off. And that team, that contractor and subcontractors are working to restore a needed community center. And so we're one day closer to opening that center this year when they work on MLK Day, because it's a day on and not a day off.
I hope you'll keep us posted on all of this, because this is wonderful news. And it's, for me, a lifelong volunteer, and now working with volunteers, which I love to do. It's, to me, I get to be a volunteer now because I'm older, and I get to do this full time, and I don't view it as work. I mean, it's work, but, I get tired, but I can engage and feed my passions so that I can feel like I'm doing something. And it's a very, very, very rewarding feeling. I'm just so pleased to have you here and to hear what you have done. Well, it's time to close now, and I hope you've had a good time. Thank you to Birgit Ben Ali, our events director, and my tech person for today. Thank you to Janice and Donna for being with us today, and thank you for joining our broadcast today. Remember, please join us and take action to be of service at we.net/MLK, and donations are gratefully appreciated at we.net/donate. Thank you so much. Goodbye from all of us at We the World.
Thank you.